Okay, so this is Wednesday, which means we're doing the value coach. And this is actually a foundational um, session. I find that coaching in the agile space is mostly a misunderstood role, or the role that it's mostly talked about is not effective as it could be. And some of it has to do with knowledge. A lot of it has to do with attitude. And a lot of this is a misunderstanding that guiding is not telling. I mean, some people guide by telling, but it doesn't have to be. And I think this is actually critical because, again, the reason I'm doing these three tracks is this is the what, this is kind of the how, but this is how to convey things to people. Okay. And you really need all of these. And um, my experience as a coach, and this is kind of ironic, I would go into places that were very sensitive about people telling them what to do, but I always diffuse that with a variety of how to introduce yourselves and things like that. We're going to do that in another few weeks. This starting in engagement introductions, how you do that. But I want to first talk about where you come from. What's ironic is the people who talk about never tell anybody how to do things were the people they had been sensitized to because they were talking about how you do stuff right from the beginning. I've been doing a series of articles on LinkedIn. I'm going to keep up with this. This is to me one of the big threads now is this just this easiest way. Uh, well, I had this post. In fact, maybe I'll come up this way. Uh, Yesterday, I made a post that was mostly understood and definitely well received uh, about why Agile starts with how instead of why and what. And it really needs to start with why and what. And when you don't, it causes all sorts of problems aside from not being respectful. And by the way, as I said, I'm trying to say everything as an opportunity and possibility now. So if you get a tone of negativity, please let me know because I have filters. So it may be, well, this is a lot better than it used to be. So it's not negative, but it's still maybe negative. Okay. I don't want it to be less negative. I don't want it to be at all negative. Okay. So if you think I am, please tell me. I'll say thank you. And I talk about that I advocate understanding why and what you're trying to do. And people understood it from an innovation, excuse me, from a motivation point of view, from a people being respected and trusted, and that was good. But what I also got was that people thought I was, and I set this up because I brought up the cynics start with why. But there are two parts to the start with why. One part to the start with why is people feel included. It's a great leadership technique, and everybody got that. But what some people missed, and I don't think it was the majority, I think it was the minority, was when you understand the why and the what, you find a better path to begin with. And this is what I started talking about. And this is one of the strengths in Amplio is when you start with why and what, you provide people motivation and a better path. You see the better path. This is really very important. And I actually, okay, here I am taking an example, and I decided, if they want to talk to me, I'm great. Oh, I just noticed I didn't actually call my cone out in that where I meant to. I had that at my cone was meant to be a note to me to just let me fix that because I don't like this out there without him knowing I'm referring to a conversation he and I had. Here we go. Good. That was a mistake on my part. Uh, Here we go. Good. I'm glad I saw that. What's interesting is he made a comment. He was making this claim that Scrum is not good, where it's not urgent, doesn't require innovation, or isn't complex, as if everywhere else it's good. But it turns out it's not. And I made this point that sometimes cross-functionality and time boxing, or rather planning ahead, doesn't work. And he made a very interesting point. This is really interesting. And I hear things like this. The situations I list seems like challenges to address rather than reasons to seek another process. Well, the question is, why is it a challenge at all? Is it a challenge because you're doing the wrong thing, or is it a challenge because you're having troubles doing the right thing. Okay, that's strong enough to write because that's really, I really meant to say something like that. Is it a challenge because you're doing the wrong thing, or is it a challenge because you're having trouble doing the right thing? And this is something people don't question. And I think I'll write another post on this because this is the essence of what we're doing wrong in the agile space. But there was something else even more important that I realized in this. Why would we have to seek another process? See, everybody accepts this. This is the whole Scrum versus Kanban, the whole Scrum versus Agile. A process is only good for certain situations. This is one of the disparities between me and the DA folks, Scott and Mark. And I love Scott and Mark, but see, I don't really believe in this life cycle bit. Pick this, pick this, pick this, except as a shortcut to get to something. Because the Amplio is designed to work anywhere. It's designed that you adjust it as you need to go. This is a different mindset. And it's very powerful. And the reason it's important is because there's no one size fits all across an organization beyond one team. I've been in organizations that had two teams and they had troubles getting Scrum to work because they couldn't get cross-functional teams. Doesn't take to get big. It's ironic. In some ways, SAFe is more flexible than Scrum because it allows Kanban or SAFe. But why not allow something that isn't this or that? This is really an important piece because people are spending a lot of money shoehorning things into a system that don't need to be shoehorned into. And I talk about that at the end, actually make some comment. This right here, reasons to seek another process. It's a weakness. When you start with why and what, you can choose the appropriate to fit almost anywhere. People don't believe this because they've been told so many times we're complex. Okay, this would be maybe another post. Complexity means the how can't be replicated, but the what and why are. Okay. Now, I know I've been saying this forever, but I think I'm starting to say it in a clear way that actually is succinct and makes a difference and people can see. And I think that's important. And this, to me, is why people are having this huge problem, is that they are coming from hows because they don't believe in the why or the what. Okay, comments on what I just said. I think it's important. This is kind of a background of an Amplio approach, but it relates to how you have to be as a coach. Does that make sense? Is it also not understood in the field? See, that's the opportunity, is this is not understood in the field. And I think this is why people are abandoning frameworks, because frameworks have a core that can't change because they're defined by the core. Amplio is defined by these practices, not practices, rather these principles. Okay. So what we're doing today is looking at, to me, what the base of a coach is. Okay. And what the mindset and what the attitude is. And that's just in the curriculum. This is where we are today. Now, we do have slides. I'm going to get to those, but I'm not going to do them first. I want to have a conversation about this. So this is again, remember this is basically the ACE sessions where I put things, and attitudes and capabilities of an effective value coach are two subsets of slides. They're different topics, but they're the same session. I'm not going to do those just yet. What I do want you to do, though, is look in your Zoom. It's not there yet. I put it in, but it's gone. I've added this now to Mural, to the rather Thinkific site. But let me go to the chat and let me redo it. I don't know why. Here's another Lucid Sparks board I want to start this session with. So go into that Lucid Sparks board. Oh, Vicky, hi. So go into that Lucid Sparks board and let me pull it up. Okay, and it should take you to here. Okay, what is a coach? Okay, yeah, good. I see some of you coming in. Now, this is how they do frames. I forget what they call them. They're real nice. You can come down here and, you can jump to things. I continue to find Lucid Sparks to be pretty amazing. Now, I want to talk about attitude and capability, and I want to talk first about what they are, and then I want you to tell me what you think. We may have an agreement here, and we may not, and that's important to talk about because actually part of the certification is going to be reaching an agreement on attitude, not so much on the capability. I'm not that worried about if you agree what you need to know, but what you are, where you come from, I think is really critical. So what I want you to do is to think about, do you see the difference? The attitude is where you're coming from. Like, this is my belief how I should be with people. So like having trust and respect, obviously, would be something, and not that I've written that up that way. Capability is kind of you need to learn, something you need to know. You don't pull a person who's a great person off the street and they make a good coach. There are skills. So you could say skills versus attitude. So remember, the way you use this is you click here, pick whatever color you want to. If you want to give it a meaning like red is really important or whatever, but just put what the good ones are. You just click which one you want. If I want a banana colored, I'll put it here and type in something. It should put your name on it automatically. Okay, go for it. You got about 5 minutes. Oh, and I'm going to discover if they have a timer. Oh, I love this. So I've yet to find functionality that was in Mural that's not in Lucid Spark. It's amazing. It's so much easier to use. So work on both or talk. We can talk. We don't have to do this. We don't have to do this just by writing it down. And sorry, Thomas, I should have warned you. You'd have to think about this. I'm still getting into that attitude of giving you advance notice. My bad, but I will learn. I really like what you said. I totally agree. And when I'm not doing it, I'm noticing it. I'll fix that. I'm just new.
Yeah, and of course, not everything needs to be scripted and prepared. It
No,
was
I
just
know, but
to break the ice a little bit. It would help in some cases.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the point. I need to think ahead. The problem I have, and I realize this is a problem. I need to meditate on this and see what it is.
Sorry,
For
do you want us to comment on this topic?
no, what do you
Comments?
think? What I want you to put in is, what attitude do you think a person should have to be a good coach? What's their attitude they should have? What do they need to know? But what they need to know down here and what their attitude is
Okay.
here. Yeah. In fact, I just realized I'm still learning about this, but it occurs to me that, hang on a second, don't do anything side by side will work better. Okay. Yeah. Flexible. So have a flexible attitude. Yeah, that makes sense. Humility. That makes sense. Yeah. And then I have my own list. I'm going to talk about my own list. That's what today is about. I have a list I've given a lot of thought to, and my co-authoress, Paula Stewart, and I have. Now, she thinks the attitude is feed your cat as much as she wants. Always hold her when she wants. But I'm talking about coaching, making companies better, not making cats happier. Ooh, I like that one. Optimism, always a solution. Yeah, that's perfect. Oops. I'll make this a little bigger this way. And I'll make this a little bigger this way. Try to stay near the center line. We can see most of them better. There, now we get some more in. Good. Excellent. Oh, you're going to have to explain sacrificial.
Well, sacrificial, I just mean that it should be considerate, about other people, putting other people, more like servant leadership.
Ah, okay, I got it. Yeah, servant leadership might be a little better than sacrifice. You mean putting the people they're coaching's value ahead of their own. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Let me retype that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I figured you meant something like that, but better to get it clear.
Yeah, I mean, I heard bleeding lambs in my head when I read that.
That's what I heard too. But I knew he meant something else. I just didn't quite click. Okay. Let's go over to the capability. Maybe we'll do 10 minutes on this because I think this is getting you to think. And here's another way to think about it. Instead of writing down what you think, write down what worked. You've all been successful at times as a coach. What worked? What were you when you were successful? Wasn't luck. There was some way you were being that helped. And then there's some way you knew things. Here, I'm going to give us, I like what this is coming. I think this is, because this is going to give us the basis for discussion of something that's very important. Oh, I like that. Non-zero sum thinking. I don't think I have that in my list, Tom. That's good. I mean, I come from there, but I don't know if I've ever said that. And as a coach, that's a very important attitude. That could also be considered part of the optimism. There's a solution. There's a relationship there. But it's good to call it out. I really, really like that. I like these others too, but that one I hadn't ever thought about putting it into as a being. I tell you
So
what,
you
let's stick with
want us to
attitude.
move over to the capabilities?
No, let's stick with attitude. Let's
Okay.
do this in two phases. Let's just stick with attitude. Stick with attitude. Give you 2 more minutes and then we're going to switch gears. Yeah, I love all these. Yeah, that's good too, actually, Vicky. I agree with create psychological safety, but that's something you do. Maybe know how to create psychological safety. That would still be a capability. Committed to psychological safety.
Okay.
Committed to psychological safety, though. That's a good one. Committed to psychological safety.
Okay. Let me
That's an
rephrase. Let me
attitude.
rephrase that.
Yeah, in fact, I kind of like that. So I'm committed to psychological safety. I'm going to make sure people feel safe around me. That's great. That's really good. Yeah. I'm just trying to make it clear. You see how that's an attitude as opposed to an ability?
Hmm.
Now, there's a reason I'm being picky about the attitude as opposed to an ability. See, an attitude, you may have no clue how to create psychological safety, but you can be committed to doing it. Do you see the difference?
Hmm.
See, this is important because when
Yes,
you
correct.
say this is an attitude. Okay, the timer's going on.
Mhm.
This is important because this is something you can be like today. You get an insight about how to be, it could start immediately. This does not take knowledge. This does not take skill. Now, to manifest psychological safety may take skill. Okay. May take knowing something. Okay, now I'm going to pull what I had. Let me just drag it over here. Let me make it more to scale. Let me zoom in on my screen. Okay. Now, I'm not actually saying mine are right, but this is how I've come from. What I actually did is I looked at it from a kind of how I did it. Okay, so I'm actually open to changing what I'm doing a little bit, but I think a lot of what we have here is related. Okay. And this is kind of interesting because I'm not sure it's certainly not a one-to-one mapping, although there's some, like right here, obviously, humility, humility, optimism.
I see empathy too. You can match that.
I'm sorry, you see what?
I say you can match the empathy.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot. This
I would actually move it over here, to the rational optimism.
which one? The optimism?
Yeah,
Oh, you're right. Well,
yeah. The
they're
path can be
both,
found
these
that
are
achieves
related.
improvement.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think it's rational optimism. Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference between these two, but they are very related at the same time. Um,
Mhm.
the flexible, okay, empathy. Oh, we had empathy twice. Uh, the thing is, some of these, like open and non-judgmental, relate to humility and compassion. So although it's different, I'm somewhat uh I don't know what this is doing. Oh, this is that stupid same thing that it likes frames. Uh, yeah, they
Does
got
it respect like
frames.
the modifier keys for control or whatever to get it to not?
I don't know. I haven't used Lucis Spark. I mean, in with Miro, there's no getting around it. You hit the boundary and that's it. They don't give you a place.
Because with a lot of them, if you use some of the modifier keys, then it will allow you to put the end wherever you want it and turn off the snap.
Yeah,
But I don't.
that could be it. It could be it. Let me try it one more time. And then, yeah, great. Thank you. The modifier keys command. Thank you. So some of these are related, but some of these are different. Some of these are in the background. Like I really like this one because this is part of the motivation for a lot of this, the humility and compassion. I actually would suggest this is underneath this, but it's worth calling it out like you have. The servant leadership, again, is something underneath this. So it may be the way I've got it is obviously insufficient. These are underneath things like what we're trying to do. We're coming from these things as well. The thing is, I didn't want to have a dozen things. So, you know what I mean? It gets to be too much. So we may have to rewrite this. The flexible is obvious because I'm saying I've got to be able to make things work. The optimist is also with irrational optimism. Uh,
So Al, can you just remind us what the difference is between believing there's a better way as a visionary and having faith that there is a solution to the complex situation?
well, it's funny because I think they're highly related. The visionary came from a conversation I had with Tom Gilb. that he said, we're idealists, we're visionaries. We believe we can always move forward. We believe that people are better than they show up sometimes. So this is maybe more about being idealistic, that there is a better way of what's possible that goes beyond the path itself. Whereas rational optimism is more about a solution that we're being faced with, that we can come up with a solution. So they're very related. And it
So
may
it's
be,
more like big picture versus a particular problem.
that's right.
So,
And maybe
yeah.
we need to rethink this a little bit, and to rethink it a little bit, and make one thing here. And then some of these others, like open, judgmental, committed to psychological safety, is that this is where you're coming from. So some of these things, see, these are characteristics, okay, which is good. But what I realized I left off was, where are you coming from with all this? See, that's why I love this stuff. See, these are characteristics. This is where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I think it's useful to just restate it, because I think visionary, and the difference between being a visionary and being able to have confidence that you can find your way in any situation are different, and they're
Yeah.
important. But I think it's just maybe a restatement of the description
Right.
under vision.
Yeah, I agree. I also do believe, though, this missing of where you're coming from. See, now responsibility is where you come from. This is something that I have seen really missing in the agile space. In fact, I really get unhappy with Scrum's attitude that if you're messing it up, it's your fault. That comes from this lack of systems thinking approach. The fact is, whatever approach you're taking is going to have an impact on the people you're trying to help. And if you can get consistent errors with the same thing, then you're doing something wrong. The system is wrong. And when you take responsibility, you see that. And when you don't take responsibility, well, it's their fault. This is the whole Deming thing of systems thinking, common cause versus special cause, where he claims almost everything is that. Now, I've had some amazing things take place with responsibility. The other problem is this, and I write this in the book. Yeah, I'll need to actually add some chapters in the coaching book for this, because in the coaching book, I've gone into places where I've had engagements with people, one-on-ones. This is often very much one-on-ones, where I will say something and somebody will not get it. They will just be even belligerent. And what it's so easy to just presume they're not open. It's easy to presume that they are just jerks. They're not going to get it. Okay, these guys are gone. But the moment you do that, you have no power to do anything. And if you take responsibility, now I don't mean blame. This is the problem. People equate blame with responsibility. You can be responsible for something and have no blame in the matter at all. In other words, when I coach people, I take total responsibility that they understand it, and I take no blame if they don't. It's not my fault if they don't understand it, but I can take responsibility that they do. And when one explanation doesn't work, I go for a second explanation. Okay. And I do talk about this in the book, which is now no longer online to everybody, but I'll give you where it is online. That's something I need to do. Here, let me make a little note of that. Add book to y'all. This is actually, we are getting very close. I know I've been threatening to be close with this book for a while, but we're literally have less than a dozen things to do, and they're small. Add book to ACE program. And it's got it's out on, no, it's on Amplio development. It's actually out on Google Docs, but it's under secured site, because while we were finishing it up, we didn't really want it. But there are some chapters in here that directly relate to this, and actually there's a chapter on this as well. So you've given me a couple things to do, because I'm obviously now going to have to change the book a little bit, but I really like this. I really like this. Anyway, I'll give you some chapters and I'll give you access to the book. Okay, so I don't want to spend more time on this going and fixing it, but what I'll do is I will sit back and see how to integrate these ideas. See, ready to learn from anyone is in humility. So there's huge overlap. We got this quite encouraged use of knowledge. I really like this because this is the encourage part is kind of, again, a little bit of what you do, but the fact that you believe other people can learn is what's underneath this. So again, this is kind of believing in the best of people. In fact, that's maybe under the empathy and compassion is to add this is part of the good in people. Is that right, Vicky? I'm kind of reading some stuff in here, but it felt that way to me. Okay. Curious, that's humility. So we're not as far off. Some of it is the labeling, non-zero sum thinking. Now, see, for me, this is implied in the rationalism, but I never thought about it quite that way. The reason I said it's implied, even though I never quite thought about it, is I've been in this space for a long time, and I know that's part of my rational optimism is that I can resolve issues. The evaporating cloud by in fact, I'm going to write that in here to remind myself. Evaporating, I keep forgetting that. Lucid Spark does have something that's a little irritating to me, but that's just because they don't do it the way I would have done it, but it's not a problem. It's not really their fault. If you put an enter key and it doesn't mean go to the next line, it means go to another sticky. Evaporating cloud. I'll put a reference to this. There's a whole book on it called It's Not Luck. Well, the whole book's on It's Not Luck, but that's a lot of it. I'll put a reference. And flexible, I think, is part of humility as well. But these are nice sub characteristics of it. In other words, if you know you don't know everything, then you got to be flexible. Does that all make sense? Does my grouping make sense? Anybody disagree with what I've done? Really useful. So what didn't show up here that I want to talk about, I mentioned responsibility, systems thinking again, because behavior comes not from the people alone, but from the system and the people in the system they're in. And of course, you have to live this. Sometimes it's scary being a coach. Sometimes you have to admit you don't know what's going on. Now that hasn't happened to me a lot, but it happens. Yeah.
Can because I'm not disagreeing with what Thomas said, but win-win can be misinterpreted, and this is a sort of hobby horse that ever since I read the Jim Camp stuff.
Yeah.
So this is really what we want, is we want to establish a shared understanding that everyone accepts as the right solution, rather than win-win the way the HBR negotiating people teach it, which is basically collective bargaining.
Yeah, good point. So I've read some of Jim Camp stuff that Andrew referred. So this isn't about negotiating a win-win. That's not necessarily a good idea. This is about working together in a way everybody wins. Is that a better way to say it?
Yeah, it's establishing, I mean, because really what you're doing is you're establishing a common vision that everybody subscribes to.
Is that okay, Thomas, to change it to what I just did?
Yeah, I certainly didn't mean it in the
yeah. No,
negotiating sense.
I know you didn't, man. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
we didn't think you did, but we thought people will misinterpret what you meant.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is really helpful. This is really helpful. This is perfect. Okay. I love this.
One more question. The systems thinking appears to me to be more of a capability that is trained, not an attitude where you're coming from.
Yeah, you're right on that, but there is an attitude part of it, okay? And maybe I shouldn't call it systems thinking. It's an awareness and realization that let me actually write this down here. Over here. There is a capability aspect to this. So I appreciate the pushback because you're right. Okay. But there is also an attitude that people are sometimes at the effect of the system they're in and don't blame them up front. So
Would,
I've conflated those two, so I need to fix that.
would something like connectedness or something be a better way to talk about? Because your attitude is that everything is connected. And the way that you validate that
Ah.
or understand it is through systems thinking.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, that's great. That's great.
Or being focused on relationships or some other better way of saying it. But
Yeah, yeah. Take an holistic view. Because you can take an holistic view and not be good at it. It's just the attitude. I'm looking at all these factors. Yeah, wow, this is awesome. This is awesome. See, this is one thing. Just I'm going to do a minute aside, then we're going to go back to the second one. I don't know a better way to learn than what we're doing right here. And yet nobody seems to want to do this except for a few people like yourself. I guess I'm a little mystified by that. But what's also mystifies me is if I was a manager, I would want people who learn like this instead of people who are just reading a book or taking a course. And I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure how to convey this to people because I think that's what's needed to lead to the next, what's coming up next, because something is coming up next. I've been in this field publicly with people for, oh, I don't know, 30 years almost. Okay. Not quite. It was before Agile. You know, there were conversations going on before Agile about how to work and things. And I've never seen the industry on the cusp of a major change as I do now. You know, going from waterfall to Agile was one, but it's even bigger now. Anyway, that's my thought. Okay, thanks for this. This is great. So now let's do this. Capability, something you have to learn. So you could put systems thinking down here. You could put these others down here. You got 5 minutes. I'm always amazed how timers only allow you to add time. If they had any instructors using it, they would know sometimes you want to remove time. I just always find that funny. Nobody seems to notice that. I'm gonna go make myself a cup of coffee while you do this. Whoa, you guys are going to town. Take a look. Oh, wow. Putting me to shame here. Good thing.
You just have to get a cup of coffee more often.
I do. Well, I love this. You're thinking differently than I was thinking, but I like this thinking. It was great. Wow. Yeah, I can also make this bigger.
Because I think with this, I mean, if you're talking about for being an effective coach, right? Because that's
Right.
what we're doing here.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of capabilities, but it's specific ways of communicating and interacting and understanding psychology and human behavior that will facilitate, like achieving an outcome collectively versus other mechanical skills that you would have to have, I think. And
Yeah.
I think most important to highlight those things that are really how people connect and interact with each other,
Right.
than some of the other ones, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, we're just moving stickies around and maybe there's no difference between this and Miro, but do you find it easier to use one or the other, or are they comparable from a tool point of view?
This looks easier for me, although not fully navigate all the functionalities, but it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it's funny. I do find I've misinterpreted some ways Lucid behaves, but they give certain feedback that eventually you realize, oh, that's what I'm doing wrong. Whereas with Miro, sometimes I was like, what is going on? I don't have any idea. Okay, so finish that one up, Susan. Let me pull in my other board here and let's see what you've extended. What I do know, what I've seen so far is that I haven't really missed any functionality yet. Okay, so let's see what we have. Now, a lot of these are umbrellas for this stuff. Okay. Oops, sorry. I don't know. There we go. Okay. Should get a mouse, I guess. See, like this, be able to usefully convey necessary concepts to different roles. A lot of these, like here, how to ask great questions. How to explain. Right, but yeah, it's a lot of this is under here. This is, you tell me when I did it wrong, okay?
So far, so good.
Oh, this is good. This is definitely needed, but I'm trying to figure out where do I put this?
The one you just did, though, the shared understanding, I think, applies to more than one box, because I would
Yeah.
say that it is to number one as well.
Yeah, it definitely
And
does. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. Okay. Communication skills, people skills. Oh, interesting. This is a really good one. Thomas, I hadn't even thought about this. There is an administrative aspect of being a good coach, isn't there? Of course, Not a surprise that I missed that one, huh?
Well, it's often difficult as a coach to do the teaching and the moderating and the note
Wow.
taking and the administrative aspects all at once, which is why it's sometimes quite useful to have two people working together,
Yeah,
and
man, I
switching
love it.
roles, etc.
Oh, I love that. That's just so funny.
Great point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when we used to do engagements at Net Objectives, we would often, not all the time, because it was difficult at times, but we would bring a facilitator along. And sometimes we would put it in the bid, and sometimes we would just throw it in. You know, if it was a big enough engagement, it was like, well, we'll just handle this ourselves. Um, okay, facilitation skills is where does that one go? You should feel free to move these over as well if you understand what I mean, but that's fine. Analytical skills. Is that over here? Just going to move these over here so I can expand it and get bigger vision. Yeah, great. Yeah, great. Thanks for doing that. You guys keep going.
I would say the listening skills also apply to both 4 and 5,
Yes.
and maybe even 1.
Oops. Okay, come on. It worked before. This is weird. Maybe it's where you have the key when you start. This is weird. I'm having the control key down, but it's not letting me penetrate that.
Was it a command key?
I mean, command key. Yeah, it was the key, but that's what I've got, and it's not. Isn't that weird? There might be something else here.
By the way, this is a note to Andrew. I really like your how to ask great questions. And I went into my drawer and found from 20 years ago, found a course that I took at Microsoft called Precision Questioning. And they were
Awesome.
all about, there's a whole catalog of types of questions to ask and so on. And it reminded me of that course. And the one thing that stuck out the most was how the instructor started that course. He said, "Welcome to the course of precision questioning, otherwise known as how to be an asshole." And it was about this whole culture at Microsoft, especially with executives, that they would have these meetings where somebody pitched an idea or a plan, and the executives would just hammer questions and try to poke holes in it, which can be seen as rather sort of aggressive, if not destructive. And you had to just get beyond that. It's not anything against the author of the proposal. It's just the best way to, in a short period of time, to probe it intensely, right? And to see whether it holds up to the scrutiny of the market later on. So anyway.
Cool.
Okay, so this is really nice. Okay, so I moved some things around, and yeah, feel free. Like I don't know why I couldn't get that arrow going right. It was working before. This is really odd. I swear it was working before. It was always working with straight arrows. I wonder if it's can't believe it's when it's a straight arrow. Huh. Well, whatever. Oh, that's interesting. I'm now trying all these other keys and I'm discovering different behaviors based on them. Okay, well, I found my first really weird idiosyncratic thing. Oh, wait, no, what was that? It's double click. Okay, well, found my first really weird thing about this that I don't like, but
That's weird, yeah, because it was working and then I didn't let go of it and then it stopped. That's weird.
I wonder if there's just a general mode it's in and it's not on the particular thing. See, I was thinking if the key was down when you did it. Anyway, I'll figure that out. No need to get this. Okay, so this is good. I'm trying to decide what to do with this. I want to come back to here though. Okay, I want to come back to this, and I'll tell you why. What is your experience of the coaches you see out there having this attitude? Is it mostly do, few do?
I'd say some of them were common traits, but definitely not all of them.
Yeah, I would agree that most coaches have some of these, but few coaches have most or all of them.
What's the impact of that?
It limits their ability to be effective because they either have blind spots that they don't recognize or they're not able to, I mean, however it manifests themselves, they're not as prepared for dealing with the environments that they could encounter. So therefore they can't help but be less effective than they could otherwise be.
What is the perception you think in the industry of this? Do you think managers would recognize this?
Well, many of the blind spots that many coaches have are the same blind spots that many managers have.
Ah, good point.
Yeah.
At least in my experience.
Takes
No,
one to know one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, for example, there was an old cartoon many years ago, showed a bunch of people at desks working. This was, it was back in the 70s, I think. And there's a manager type with a code who says, "You guys start coding. I'll go up and find out what they want."
That's good.
Nice.
You got to find that.
And I tell you, I've seen that so many times that, oh yeah, it's a "you guys start coding" thing.
Yeah, well, I actually, because like if you look at Acuff's descriptions of the differences between leadership, management, and administrators and coaches and guides and whatever else, I mean, if you're really an effective leader, you're going to have the majority of these things. Because unless you're a command and control tyrant, and then people are not, I mean, the definition of effective then comes into question depending on your timescales and whatever else. But if you're not, and let's face it, most aren't, and most managers aren't leaders, most managers are actually administrators, then they don't need this stuff to be effective administrators, or a subset of them is required to be an effective manager. So if you start talking to them about this stuff, they don't see the value in it themselves. So why would they recognize the value of having it as a coach?
Yeah, that's kind of depressing, actually.
And
But
even if
absolutely
they
right.
do see it, even if they do see the value, they know they don't have it, and it's scary.
Yeah, and they kind of don't want to show it's possible that somebody else has it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also imagine that these would fall into the category of soft skills, right? Creating psychological safety and empathy and so on. And in the engineering community, they are perhaps not valued as highly as the hard technical skills. And one of the consequences that I would add is that you are going to lose contributions of some of the team members, right? Those who are maybe not, who need psychological safety more than others. Maybe they're more introverts than the extroverts.
Yeah.
And if you don't create the right environment, you lose the contributions of those people, which then leads to what Andrew said, you're not as effective.
Yeah. By the way, I think I
Yeah.
just figured this out, so I'll share it. If you come and you click on it, what I did is I clicked on this, I then hold Command down, I get that, and now I can drag it past. Oh, I swear I could just a second ago. So there's something bizarre. I'll figure it out and I'll let y'all know. This is really odd. Because I just was able to do this. Anyway, I'm sorry, was there somebody else wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say that especially with technical people, but with a lot of other people, it's not just psychological safety, but the safety to use your mind to collaborate. Because some people will complain in psychological safety, but they won't propose anything because that's a further level of psychological safety, I
Say
guess.
that again. I'm not sure I got that.
A lot of people view psychological safety as being free to complain.
Oh, okay.
But there's a further thing that you really want people to do is to think and contribute. And that's a level of psychological safety that
Interesting.
doesn't exist in some places where it is safe to complain.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good distinction. I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, this is good. I'll get this up there. I'll see what I can do to resolve these in our book. I think, and like you say, some of these are in more than one place. So I'm not quite sure how to do that. But we'll figure that out. Okay. Well, I'll get this up a little later. And then, next week, I felt this week was kind of a little bit of a getting started in foundations. Next week, we have still maybe a little bit of it, but I'm trying to reset things. So I have a lot about value streams and the customer journey. Then we go back to the engagement model that we didn't quite finish. We're going to go with that. And then the foundation workbook. Hopefully I'll get that. I think the foundation's very important. And I have started, if you read my emails, I wrote this thing about these 3 different certifications I want to start working on and maybe demonstrate the effectiveness of an ACE. And, I think this could be accelerated also by, I don't know if you read my stuff, but if you do read my stuff, even if you just like it on it, it gets more hits. And if you repost it, it gets more hits. I think what we're trying to do here is not just you learn something, not just we learn something together, but I think, or what I'm trying to do is create a new way of looking at what coaches and what frameworks or approaches need to be. So anything you can help me with is helping you as well. So I just invite you for that. But anyway, I'll see you. I'll be in touch. We have, remembered this afternoon, a Dr. is in session, which I'll be going over the boards if nobody comes with questions. And then tomorrow morning, we have a Dr. is in session again for boards. The idea is to try this stuff out, ask me questions about how it's working. But thanks so much. This was a great, great session. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Al,
Thanks,
we could
everyone.
Have a great
we
one.
could perhaps also talk about the flow at scale.
Yeah, if you know something about that, I'd be really interested in that.
Yeah, I think the Doctors In session might be a good forum to discuss that.
Okay. Are you going to come this?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about this then. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely like to talk about that. Okay, great. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Talk later.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.